We're very lucky. Today we have the lovely, well I presume he's lovely, I haven't done really ever met him, Arron Wood. Talking to you, he's an animator, I believe. Is that right?
That's correct. Okay, can I have a quick show of hands, because I didn't know that, I thought everyone might be animation today, so can I have a quick show of hands who actually is an animation student? Okay, not bad. So I've kind of worked out my presentation based on everything animation, so I hope that everyone who is an animation kind of pulls. I'm going to be concentrating on animation today, but I'm hoping that everybody gets something out of each section. I've kind of split it up into my history, how I got into animation, and how I set a studio up. So if there's anyone interested in setting their own animation studio up after university, then you'll find that bit useful. Although Noel introduced me as an animator, I'm actually a producer. I was an animator, but I've kind of become a producer now, and I'm going to kind of explain how I got into the role of a producer, which basically means, the background stuff of running your own studio. I'm then going to talk about our commercial work, how we win our commercial work, pitching process, and show you a little bit about that, and then how that kind of funds into our own personal projects, our own TV shows we're trying to develop. I'm going to give you one specific example of a project we finished about 2 months ago, which we're still promoting around festivals, and then it's open to you guys for questions. But you feel free to stop me along the way if you have any questions. So, I graduated 17 years ago. I started university 17 years ago at UCA, which was the Farnham animation course down there, and I graduated in 2005. When I left 2005, I started working in the Animation Research Centre, which is kind of bolt-on to the university. This is a place where we house 2 of the biggest UK collections of animation. Has anyone heard Bob Godfrey or Hudson Bachelor? And if you haven't, you've probably heard the shows they've done. So Animal Farm was the first UK feature film. Rhubarb and Custard was one of Bob Godfrey's most famous show. In this archive, we had all of this original artwork. We had the cells, we had the backgrounds. They were just in this kind of damp cardboard boxes collecting dust, and the archive's job was to go through and catalogue all the artwork. That's where I met my business partner to be, Katie Steed. That was her job, going through all the cataloguing all of the artwork. I was much more technical minded, so I was working on the film side, going through the old 16mm and 35mm film reels, and cataloguing that. So when I met Katie, we worked well together. I was doing the technical stuff, she was doing the creative stuff. And this is kind of what forms the, our friendship. 2 years working in the archive, we left Farnham. Katie graduated in 2007, and I've been working, 2 years after I graduated. So we decided, what are we going to do now? Are we going to get a job? And anyone looking for a job in animation, it's tough. I'm not going to go into that, but that wasn't an option. We applied for things. There's always positions come up and come, but when you're a new graduate, it's sometimes hard to get your foot in the door. So we did apply for a lot of jobs, but that didn't work out. Back in 2007, there was a lot more funding, but that was on its way out as well. So we thought about making a short film, but the funding was kind of drying up, so that wasn't an option. Becoming a freelancer or starting a studio, they're separate things, but they're similar. One's freelancer, you're working on your own. Starting a studio, okay, you've got a name. A few of you can join together. So we decided to start a studio because it was always my kind of dream. So Katie being the creative, she was the artist. I was more into stop motion at university, she was more into 2D, but she was an amazing 2D animator, so we decided to go down the 2D animation route, and I decided that I would be the technical guy. Katie always had a saying, she did the pretty stuff and I did the clever stuff, so I did the website, the marketing, the business, and she would storyboard, do the artwork, and I would always help out. So I knew animation, I knew After Effects, and I could always help out, and that's how we started. So this is just for anyone who's thinking of starting a studio when they leave. A lot of people think it's really complicated, or you've got to go through a lot of hoops, there's a lot of paperwork, bureaucracy. It's not really, it's simple as these 3 steps. We took a couple of days to decide our name, and this usually takes a lot longer than it needs to. We wanted something we were happy with, and we wanted something that is going to quirky in animation, so we came up with Slurpee Studios. That was the first thing. Katie designed the logo. Registering your company. Back 10 years ago when we registered, it was a lot harder. There's more paperwork that you had to do, but now online, in half an hour, you can just go onto the HMRC website, register your company, register yourself as self-employed, and you can start a company. And if you're going to go freelance as well, it's pretty much the same thing. You have to register self-employed. But like I say, that's half an hour and you're done. And then, basic marketing materials. You need business cards, a website, and a showreel. It hasn't changed in 10 years. It's still the most important marketing materials you need. And you're pretty much ready to go to look for your first bit of work. So just our early business cards, our showreel, which is no longer on DVD, it's all online now, and our first website. So everyone wants to know when they start out, whether it's starting their own business or being freelance, how do you find your first job? Where does the work come from? Which is really hard to answer. There's no one way. So we were really naive, and we were just trying anything we could, anything that would stick. 10 years ago, Facebook and social media was in its infancy. We even had a MySpace page back then, which is how we found our first job, which was a music video. But we were writing blogs, we were on all of the forums, the job boards back then. We were just putting our name out there saying, we do animation, does anyone want animation? It was as simple as that. We didn't have anything to sell but our student showreels, which we've merged into one. So yeah, an online blitz, that was step one. Networking is probably the biggest thing, which I'm such a big fan of, and I tell everyone. A lot of people kind of get scared of the idea of networking, think it's a room full of stuffy people, businessmen, what is networking? But basically it's just drinking in a pub, in a venue. It's just, it's socialising. Animation events are some of the nicest, friendliest events. Does anyone here go to any animation events like Festivus or London Animation Club? No. As a student, I didn't either, but there's a lot out there, especially in London, which is, like I said, literally just animators gathering in a pub. There's producers, animators, directors, all just getting together, getting pissed, and talking about animation and geeking out. So it's really good fun. I would recommend, if you're into animation, you want to go to networking. Festivus is a really good one. It happens 4 times a year. I could probably put the links up to the Facebook group. And London Animation Club, which also has a Facebook page. That's a monthly meet-up. Animators again, there's usually a special talk by an animator. But like I said, it's how you meet most of your future collaborators or clients. And again, if you're starting your own business, I'd really recommend business breakfast clubs or local business groups, like BNI, Chamber of Commerce. Start local. All animators obviously want to make their own shows, they want to make short films, and they want to do the really big campaigns, the fun stuff. But if you're starting out, it's really good to start local with local businesses, within Bedfordshire, Hertfordshire, if that's where you live. And of course, sending your reel out. It's not DVD anymore, I guess, but that will stand out if you are sending your reel out and it's DVD and you package it up really nicely. We're a studio for that, came through the door. It's going to stand out a lot more now than just an email coming through. But put your show together and then just send it out. It's going to be speculative at first. There's not going to be everything that sticks. You will have to send it out and you have to keep reminding people that you're there. It's not like you can send one email and that will be enough. You have to keep reminding them. And then once you start going, after about a year, word of mouth will spread. You'll work with people and they'll recommend you on. And that's kind of how we've kind of progressed. I think I'm spending too long on the boring stuff, aren't I? So pitching for commercial work. Once you get going, there's a few ways that we actually get our commercial work in. We've now kind of got our showreel and enough of a reputation where agencies are coming to us, so they're calling us or emailing us. And I'm going to talk about how the process works when an agency approaches us, or it's directly from a company. So companies are trying to cut out the middleman a bit more now, and agencies aren't as involved. Sometimes they're coming straight to the animation studio saying, we want something for social media, or we want a short film to show our company's history, so they're coming straight to us. And tendering is the third way, which I'm not going to go into, but it's basically governments or councils put out a job, they put out a document, and they say, this is what we're looking for, we need an animation studio, say, this is the budget, you need to write a proposal and convince them. But the thing about tendering is there are so many companies going from it. It's open to everyone in the country usually, sometimes the whole of Europe, so it's a very competitive thing. So I won't go into tendering. So that's a bit about the studio. So what does a producer do? In animation, I master this quite a lot. It's easy to do, kind of identify a director and an animator, but not a lot of people know what producers do because there's no formal training. Since I kind of graduated, there's been a couple of courses that have popped up where they get other producers in, but it's a kind of role that you fall into when you run a studio, or independent producers choose to do it, but it's not usually something you go to university and think, one day I'm going to be a producer. Does anyone here want to be a producer? No, okay. Like I say, it's something you fall into if you're working for yourself, usually. So what do I do? So our roles at Slurpee are split. Katie Steed is my business partner, so like I said, she does the creative stuff. I'm pretty much responsible for the boring stuff, the project management, scheduling, budgeting, and making sure the client's happy with the deliverables. That's the simplified, watered-down version of what a producer does. Taking through the kind of process for a project. Typically, using the example of a client we had a few years ago. The agency will call up and they'll say, we have a client, and that's the car insurance company. This is their brand. They'll send us over some artwork and say this is, what the branding of the campaign will be. All we have is the concept that something bad will happen to a car, and then it gets better. We need this whole thing done, animation, music and voice, in about 4 weeks. So this is a 30-second commercial. Can you do it? And because you're the producer and you run a studio and you want to keep paying your bills, you say yes. Whether you can do it or not, you work that out later, but you always say yes, well I do, and then figure it out. So once I've said yes, they actually want proof that I can do it. So as a producer, I will go away. I'll put together a budget. So it's easier probably to start the schedule. So I know it's 4 weeks, so I've got the schedule there to show how long I'm spending on each stage, how long I need in production, sort of animation and all that. That's a lot easier then to work out the budget from that. Some people get really excited about colourful spreadsheets like me, but yeah, you need to do that first before you can work out the budget. So that's the first thing I do. And sometimes, I'll just wait for you guys to take some photos. Sometimes when we're doing a pitch at this stage, they also want to see a style frame. So from my point of view, I need to prove that, that we can do it from a logistics point of view. Katie will sometimes go away and create a style frame. So in this example, we knew they wanted landmarks, and they kind of wanted this Google Maps background on everything. So we knew that, but we had to create the artwork. So we went away and made a style frame, which went in for the pitch, which is typical. Sometimes they ask for 2 or 3 style frames, and we try and always accommodate them. And if they take that away, they show that to the client, and they pitch that themselves because they're the agency. If the client's happy, they accept, or they'll come back to us, or sometimes they'll decline, and then production begins. So, things to consider when you're actually pitching is that you will probably be not the only one. Sometimes it's possible, but there's usually 3 to 5 other companies pitching with you. So it's always it's competitive. You're always up against someone, and usually they're your friends, because in animation it's a very small industry. You always know someone who's pitching. There's even been pitches where we've walked in, or we've walked out, and the other company's walking in. We know them, we shake their hands, say good luck, mate, and it's like that in animation. So you will start to compete against your friends. Second point is how much you're willing to spend on a pitch, because pitching is free. You're doing all this work to try and win a project. There's no guarantee of work or anything at the end. So you're doing all this pitching. You have to decide how much you're actually going to pitch before you're putting too much time into it. So a style frame is usually as far as we'll go, a few style frames. Sometimes they ask for storyboards and animation tests. And when it starts going into pre-production, like they want pre-production work, we're like, sorry, we can't put that much work into a pitch, because you're putting weeks into something that you're not going to guarantee you're going to get. So there's always that kind of question: how much are you willing to do? And then how much can you actually deliver? So commercial work can have fast turnarounds. 4 weeks was my example there, but sometimes it's a week, sometimes it's 2 days. It can vary. So if you've got to actually think, can you deliver? And if you can, well, even if you can't say yes, then work with that. That's what I do. So in summary, I need to convince them that we can deliver on time with the schedule, deliver on budget, we've given them the budget, and that we will create amazing work. Well, hopefully the style frame and our show that they've already seen will speak for that. So that's my job, to convince them, to sell to them basically. And then during the project, if we actually win the project, my first job is to assemble the team. So we do have people in-house, like designers and animators, and Katie's always in-house directing. But there's always someone else you're going to need, a voiceover artist, musician, or other animators. So I have to then quickly assemble the team. It's really hard if it's like a week turnaround project. But I know freelancers now who kind of respond to that kind of quick turnaround. So my first job is to get the people in. My second job is to ensure that we always hit this milestones. If I take you back to the schedule, you can see those blacked out bits. That's supposed to be switched around, but the blacked out bits are the client feedback. So I've got to ensure that by those stages we've got everything ready, and the client is. I have to also chase up the client to make sure that they've got their feedback to us in the 1 or 2 days that I've given them. And yeah, producer job, trying to think 10 steps ahead for any problems. I can't really give specific examples. That always happens though. You just try and have to think, what if something goes wrong? What will go wrong? Do you need extra people in place, or have you contacted extra people just in case someone's off sick or something? So it's always thinking like that. So the work that we do, I think it's probably a good chance time to show you our showreel, to give you a kind of flavour of the kind of work we do. But I'll just show you, this is the kind of fun stuff we do. So Royal Observatory Greenwich and the K-Swiss were 2 projects this year, which were nice and fun, and comic relief. We love doing stuff with characters. We love doing narrative-based commercial work. Yeah, I'm probably going to sit down and show you the showroom now, so you can see what we do. Okay, so that's a flavour of our work. Like I say, we like doing character and narrative-based stuff, and a lot of the fun stuff is usually geared towards children. So the one up there is for really young children, teaching about space. This kind we have to balance off with more boring projects. I have taken the logos off these, so I don't want to tell you which clients we didn't like working with, but these are the kind of projects which we have to do to kind of bring money in. So we've got the kind of traditional, the kind of classic now whiteboard animation, which is everywhere, and these kind of infographic things. So we do quite a lot of these things. It's usually for kind of internal communications, which is when a company has needs a film to explain to their employees or show investors, and no one in the outside world is going to see these. It's just for the company inside. So they want somebody to explain the concept, and yeah, we say yes because they usually pay quite well, and they're pretty simple to make. So we have to trade this off, which is kind of leading me into the personal project, which we have been working on the last couple of months. So yeah, we took on one of these whiteboard films over summer, and it was a simple project. We're used to it, and we produced one, and it had enough of a budget to kind of carry us through a couple of months, so we could kind of work on our own personal projects, which is what a studio you want to do. You don't just want to be doing this kind of the stuff that pays the bills. So yeah, like I say, all the commercial work pays our bills. It's about 90% of our work will be commercial, which will leave us the 10% time and budget to work on our own stuff in our own time. So these are just a couple of examples of shows which we have been developing. Bunny Brigade was something we started about 5 years ago. We pitched it, it wasn't successful then, but in the world of this TV, something's not successful, you know, it doesn't mean it's dead. We had good feedback, but it wasn't right for the time. Her Street is an idea we're currently working on at the moment, which is celebrating women through individual women, real life stories of women through history. So we've kind of got this cast of real women and their amazing stories, and we're going to look into making that as animation and apps and books. So that's our own kind of personal projects, but it kind of leads me on to one which we took on in June and July, which I'm going to use as a case study now. So, like I say, back in the summer we had a commercial project which paid us well enough to relax a little bit, and enabled us to make this personal project, which is kind of commissioned, but not quite. So, who watches Coronation Street here? Yeah. So you all know who this guy is, this nice piece of work? Okay, I'll just fill anyone in who doesn't watch Corrie. I don't, by the way, but last Christmas, this guy, Chris Harper is the actor, Nathan Curtis is his character in Coronation Street. He joined last Christmas, and his storyline was basically grooming Bethany, this girl here who's about 16, and it was kind of a shocking storyline back then, and it kind of carried on for a few months. Then he left the soap because he got arrested, and this is when he contacted us, and I watched it over Christmas, and I didn't like the look of this guy at all. When he contacted us and his emails, it was like, oh really, I want to meet him. But we met him, we decided to meet him, and the reason is because of the role he was playing in Coronation Street, he was a patron of a child sex abuse charity. He was very passionate about this. He was talking to a lot of victims to learn about his role in Coronation Street, and he became really passionate about the whole cause and this charity. And through word of mouth, with another client that we had worked for, he recommended us to Chris, and Chris contacted us and said, well, I've got a charity film that I want to make. Were you free to meet up and discuss it? So we agreed to meet up. We knew charity films aren't always big budgets, but it was a really good cause, and we knew the storyline, so we thought, okay, let's give it a go. And we met up with him. Basically, I'm going to be really transparent about the budget, so I'll go back a sec. We met with Chris, and he said, what I want is about a 1 and a 1.5 minute animation. I want it to, my character is going to be coming back into Coronation Street in September, and when he does, I'm going to be on all the TV shows like Loose Women this morning, and I really want to push this charity, and I want to have an animation to kind of, help with the awareness of this charity. So that's my kind of deadline, September. He said, there's no budget really. He said, that's coming out of my own pocket, £800 is all we're going to have for this film, which, to make a 1.5 minute film, and he wanted frame by frame animation, that's really nothing. So we said, it's going to be really tight, but we really want to work with you, and it sounds like you've got a strategy in place for how you're going to get the film out there. We went back to the studio like me and Katie usually do and thought, we really want to work on this project, but can we do this? Can we actually make it for £800? So we decided to waive our fees as a producer and director and our studio fees, and put all of the money into one animator who we had in mind. We've got a fantastic animator who is brilliant on frame by frame 2D animation. And we said, we can't afford voice and we can't afford music, so we went back to Chris and said, this is what we can give you in terms of production, but with your contacts, can you find the voice, can you source the music? So he went away and he found this local community kind of company called College Arts, which gets people from like less disadvantaged backgrounds and kind of trains them up in media production, whether it's animation or sound or music. So he said, let's give it a go. We all met. The next meeting, this is the promotion after the show, but this guy is Phil Lafferty, who's the chair of the charity which is voicing CSA, voicing child sex abuse. He was a victim himself, and he's out there now pushing the charity. And he's extremely, he's a quiet guy, but he's incredibly emotional, and we met with him, and he was trying to get the idea of what he wanted in this film out of his head, and as soon as he was explaining it, it was so passionate, so emotional, I can't really put it into words, but that was his idea in the email. But when he started explaining it, he was doing the voice, the emotion was coming across, and if we'd have just recorded him in that first meeting, it would have been an amazing narration in its own right. So Katie decided, this is her quote along the bottom, that this is a project that she really wants to make. She was passionate about making this as well. So we found a way. We did it, like I say, we had the budget to pay an animator, do it ourselves for no fee, and get the College Arts company on board. So we set about working on this project, and Chris had already given us a couple of films he'd liked, which were referenced, but there was nothing like we could achieve in about 6 weeks and on the budget. But Katie was putting together a mood board to see what was possible, and she really liked the kind of black and white style. It kept it quite minimal, we didn't have to colour in frame by frame, and we wanted that kind of moody piece. The first idea came from a film Chris has seen in our show, which you may have noticed towards the end, where there's a blackboard, and there's a hand that comes on with a little character. We did that to illustrate a war story. But he really liked that piece because it was a hand manipulating a character, and we had this idea how the hand would move a character around the screen. So that was the kind of first idea, and going back to Phil's idea of the mouse, we were thinking, how can we incorporate black and white illustration, and yeah. So Katie went away after the visual styles went back to Chris and Phil, and they said, we like what you're going for here, the black and white style could really work. So then it was up to Katie to make actual concept work based on the mouse idea. So the ideas were starting to formulate in Katie's head, and she was writing the script then, which was, we were trying to make it as non-verbal as possible, but we realised that wasn't going to be possible because we wanted a character which was going to be the abuser. So, yeah, I'm probably going to show you the work in progress animatic. I've got 3 versions to show you. It's probably going to speak more than just showing you this. The first is going to be Katie's storyboard, which she produced in this style, very detailed. It almost looks like the animation because it's so detailed. And the second is going to be when we handed that to our animator, our 2D animator, and you'll see the hand sketching that she did, frame by frame animation. And the third version I will show you will be the final finished film. It got a lot longer as well, because these projects always do. We started out as a minute, so that's all you can achieve for the budget. You can't do it any longer than that. Then it was 1 minute 17, 1 minute 30, 2 minutes. It's now 2 minute film, but it's much better for it. And yeah, I'm going to show you some of the animatic and the line test now. So this is the first storyboard which we sent to the client.
There you go.
We're going to start again and just say, in the early days, before we had a voice artist on board, Katie always does the voice for everything, so it's not very intimidating. But you kind of get used to the voiceover that you use, but yeah, this is just Katie's scratch track voice.
Hey there. Hey, it's okay, I got you. There you go, brilliant. You're so clever. I got you, it's okay. Oh no, did you fall? Poor thing, here you go, all better. I'm going to take such good care of you. Now, where are you going? What are you scared of? I told you, I've got you. Don't you even care about me at all? I care about you. I help you, don't I? Do as you're told. You're so stupid! There, now, push your luck and look what you made me do. You're nothing without me. Can't stay angry at you. This could be our little secret. We mustn't tell anyone else, they'd be so angry at you. I'd never let anything happen to you. Now, come here. No!
Okay, so that was the first storyboard, which doesn't really go into anything afterwards. There's no end to it, but that was the main part of the story. Yeah, I'm going to show you the line test next before we talk anymore. So we handed this that version to Fern, our animator, and you'll be able to see in the background you've kind of got Katie's drawing, which is just a kind of rough guide to see the action. Fern will then take it, and she actually keeps rats herself, which means, well, this is a mouse, but she had live action footage, and she really enjoyed working on this because she got to play with her rats and use them as observation as she was doing the animation. So this is frame by frame. Every frame is produced in one frame at a time, and TV Paint is the software which she used, which we don't use in-house actually, but we gave all of the animation to Fern, our animator, so she could work as quickly and efficiently as possible.
Hey there. Hey, it's okay, I got you. There you go, brilliant. You're so clever. I got you, it's okay. Oh no, did you fall? You poor thing. There you go, all better. I'm going to take such good care of you. Now, where are you going? What are you scared of? I told you, I've got you. Don't you even care about me? I care about you. I help you, don't I? Do as you're told. You're so stupid! There, now, you pushed your luck and look what you made me do. You're nothing without me. I can't stay angry at you. This can be our little secret. Mustn't tell anyone else. They'd be so angry with you. I'd never let anything happen to you. Now come here and we'll...
So as you can see, it's still a work in progress as a film. One of the challenges of this film was the voice and the music and the sound. Voice, first of all, when we were talking about the project in the early days, Chris, his character, he's been playing this character for a while. He didn't want to kind of be associated, he didn't want to do the voice. He wanted to get away from that kind of stereotype of who he was, as this character in Coronation Street. And we also were quite aware that we didn't want to make the abuser a male. We wanted to get across that abusers could be at any age, race, sex, anyone at all, and that we wanted to get across. So we had a lot of versions of the voice. We tried a lot of actors and actresses. We tried merging not just one. We've got Chris there. He actually was doing the voice. He ended up doing the final voice because that's how it worked out in the end. But we tried it with female voices. We tried merging different voices and then layering them, so it was like there were many abusers, and it just wasn't working. It was sounding quite robotic, and I don't know if it's because of Chris' experience playing the character, but he kind of nailed it. So we did do a lot of trial and error there. So that's the team here, just so, because I've not got a good slide for sound music. Lamar and Toby were the sound guys at College Arts. Toby managed it, and Lamar was doing all this on his own. Chris ends up being the voice. That's Bernard, our animator, who did all the 2D work, and myself and Katie. That's at the launch party. So the voices, yeah, like I say, it wasn't working with a group of people. So Chris went in the recording studio. He did all the voices himself. But when it built up to the point where, you know, the line is going to raw, that's where we decided to keep the kind of layered voices of different abusers, and you'll probably hear that in the final version. Also, the sound was quite a challenge because Lamar had never done this before, and we had to direct, and we were off campus, and you know, this is very new to him as well. So kind of telling how we wanted to build up to the kind of that moment where the line roars, and then had to change the mood completely and go into kind of the sound would completely end, finish, and it would just be the music, bring us into the call to action screen at the end. So yeah, we did that, and I'm going to show you the final version of the film now, which is, some says, well, it's quite an emotional film, so I hope you guys enjoy it. Isn't the right word, but appreciate it.
Hey there. Hey, it's okay, I got you. There you go, brilliant. You're so clever. I got you, it's okay. Oh no, did you fall? You poor thing. There you go, all better. I'm going to take such good care of you. Now, where are you going? What are you scared of? I told you, I've got you. Don't you even care about me? I care about you. I help you, don't I? Do as you're told. You're so stupid! There, now, you pushed your luck and look what you made me do. You're nothing without me. Oh, we can't stay angry at you. This can be our little secret. Mustn't tell anyone else. They'd be so angry with you. I'd never let anything happen to you. Now come here and we'll... What? No!
So that's the final version, the 2-minute version, which, yeah, I was saying it kind of went from 1 minute to the 2-minute mark. We've started to submit that to festivals. That last frame that you saw wasn't really added. When we started to get it into festivals, which that's the thing about filmmaking, once you finish the film, you can just put it online and it does its job, but we submit all our films into festivals, so it kind of gets a second life around the world and shown in festivals and things, but people didn't really know what Voice in CSA was, so we added that end title card, just to kind of give it some more context. So that was the film, and it's since, so that was launched at the end of September, start of October, when Chris was back in Coronation Street, and he was taking it around to all of the shows, so it's done really well for the kind of raising awareness of the charity, and the plan is to make a few more, because Phil, second to last guy, again, he's got a lot more ideas in his head, and he really wants to kind of make a series to kind of get out what he's had in his head for years, and to use them as to raise awareness. So yeah, I've shown on the film. If you guys are interested in finding out more about the actual project, if you go to our website, which is slappystudios.com, and just click on news on our blog, you'll find us about 5 or 6 stories that are kind of behind the scenes, if you wanted to see how that sound was made or how we did the storyboarding, so just a bit of information if you're more interested. That kind of concludes the talk about the actual project. I'm going to do a couple of selfless plugs on 2 other, apart from Slappy Studios, I have 2 other websites that I work on, which animators might find particularly interesting. One of them is called animationfestivals.com, which I set up in 2009. We were submitting to all the festivals, like I say, every time we make a film which is festival worthy. You know, we started an Excel spreadsheet, and there's about 280 festivals on at the moment. If you're submitting your film when you get to your third year film, or even your second year film, whenever, we can't recommend highly enough submitting it to festivals around the world. It gives you a chance to get your name out there, see your work on the big screen. Sometimes they even pay for you to go to these really cool places, France, Japan, wherever it might be, and see your film be part of the festival. So check that out if you're actually submitting or you want to visit festivals, because it's my attempt to list all of the festivals which are specific to animation. So with another hat, I'm also one of the owners of Squiggly Animation magazine. Does anyone here know Squiggly? Nope. It's been going since 2004, but me and two friends bought it out in 2012, and we've kind of revamped it a few times. It's a website which Squiggly's pretty much only online. We do a few events around the country. Do the Squiggly quiz at summer festivals, which is like a pub quiz. But it's mainly a news interview site, showcases. So if you've got a film and you're submitting it to festivals and it's actually out there in the world, we really encourage people to submit their films, and it gives a chance to kind of tell us a bit about your influences, how it was made, and what it was about, so that we can then share it to our audience as well. We have podcasts and videos. We interview the top animators, Nick Parks, Richard Williams, the top animators, the Disney guys and Pixar guys. So we've got a lot of podcasts and videos with those. Tutorials about acting in animation, sound in animation. We've got a few of those, and we have a great events calendar, which I maintain myself. Like I said, networking is so important, just to get to all of the events you can, whether it's a screening or just getting a piss up in a pub, anything like that. It's all on the Squiggly animation events calendar. Basically any questions, feel free to follow us, or you can email me at my email address at Slurpee, and follow us on Instagram, Twitter or Facebook. But yeah, basically, do you have any questions about anything I spoke about today? Thank you. Any questions?
The Hallison Bachelor Animal Farm, what was the story behind that again?
So when I graduated at Farnham, I went to work in the Animation Research Centre, which was an archive, kind of bolted onto Farnham. They had this great warehouse of artwork, and they had all of the Hallison Bachelor materials in there as well. So they had Animal Farm, they had loads of boxes of all of the artwork, and all of the other stuff Hallison Bachelor were producing from the 30s onwards till like the 80s or 90s. It was our job to kind of go through all of that artwork and catalogue, and the film cans itself, and catalogue what was there. That collection's now gone to the BFI, but we had it in its early days when we were free just to put our white gloves on and actually get our hands dirty and actually look at the real cells in the frames back in the day. So that was a good job.
Right. And the artwork for Rhubarb and Custard?
Yeah, that was there.
Yeah.
There was some of that as well. Henry's Cat, which was one of his shows as well.
Really early...
It was Magic Market. It was whatever. Yeah, they had such a low budget, so it was all done on paper, no sales. It's just yeah, that's it. It's white wobbled. It's white foiled. Yeah. Any other questions? Does anyone here want to start a studio up when they leave? Is it too early to think like that? Yeah. Probably is.
What made you personally get into animation, study animation?
Probably going back to when I was 8 years old, watching Disney. There was one particular Disney film which no one's seen called The Reluctant Dragon, and they released it. It's not a great film, but they released it with a kind of behind-the-scenes documentary. So it's like this archive footage of Walt's giving you it wasn't Walt, it was this random guy with a hat on, walking around the studio as if he's never seen animation before, and he's walking through all these departments and he's seeing how it's all made. And you can still get it on Amazon. It's part of the Reluctant Dragon behind-the-scenes DVD, and for seeing that and how animation was made, that I wanted to make animation, but I wanted my own studio as well. So all through school, university, everything, it was like animation. I was just chasing that dream type of.
How long did it take to get your studio off the ground?
Well, like I say, in half an hour you can have a studio. If you design, get the name, logo, register yourself in half an hour. I don't know how long it would take you to put a show reel together or a website, but you could do it in a week, and then you just got to go out and start selling yourself, and that's the thing that takes the time. You've got to start going to their events, and it takes a while for them to, actually bring some work in. But don't let how long it takes put you off, because in a week you can say to someone, I've got my own studio now, just like that.
What would you say makes a professional like qualifications, experience?
No, I would say, I think university is great. You need to go to university to learn you need to learn your craft at university, and you need to make a film. But we never look at the piece of paper, the qualification, whether it's a first, whether it's distinction, whatever. That's not the thing that would make a professional animator. It's always the portfolio. So when we get a cover letter in, it has a CV and a portfolio. We nearly never open the CV. It's always the portfolio. We want to see the design. Is it our design style on the showreel which matches us and the work we do? Sometimes we get showreels which have stop motion, CG and 2D, and as we only do 2D, that doesn't really help us. We want to see people that just do 2D, so it's important to target the studio with the work that you want to do, but it's all down to the showreel and technical ability. We can see, we can tell someone's got talent, and they might not have, be a professional, like you say, yeah, but if they've got that talent or the style that we use, then that's good enough to get your foot in the door. But yeah, it's all on portfolio and showreel. And I'm not just the only studio who's saying that. There's a lot. Everyone says it's based on that. Hope to see some of you guys at London Animation Club or festivals, because it's a good event. It's good times. And also this week I should probably give a shout out to the London Animation Club, because you guys aren't that far. No, sorry, the London Animation Festival. This has been going for like 25 years. It's starting today, overnight. It's in the Barbican Centre in London. Every night there's a different screening, so some nights it'll be more abstract experimental animation, some nights it's the best of British, some nights there'll be a feature film. There's usually about 2 screenings a night. That will run from tonight until the 10th of December. So if you get along to that, I recommend. You might see me there with your other friends, Sweden people. Yes, it's more networking, so I recommend it. Okay. If there's no other questions, thank you again, and you'll be on your way. Thank you.